John Paul II. This dynamic new pope was to become a geopolitical force.
This is a pope whose driving cause in Poland was the solidarity movement, seeing labor as a way of not only toppling the Soviet system, but of redeeming the human person. So he had this fascination with the spiritual meaning, the spiritual significance of work. I think the same fire in him that led him to embrace solidarity in Poland led him to embrace Opus Dei in the Catholic Church.
John Paul's admiration of Opus Dei's mission would bring an unprecedented papal endorsement. In 1982, he established Opus Dei as the Church's only personal prelature, the legal distinction for which Father Jose Maria Escrivá had tirelessly worked for decades.
So what a personal prelature does is, the members of Opus Dei, if they're spiritual care, their unique program of prayer, they are under the jurisdiction of the prelate, in effect, the bishop of Opus Dei, rather than the bishop of the local diocese.
Opus Dei had their own seal of approval, rapidly achieved in 54 years, warp speed in the Church's life. For some Church observers, this status signaled special favor.
As the only personal prelature, it elevates Opus Dei over all the other lay organizations and lay institutes in the Church. And I think one of the big questions is, why is that needed?
Then, in 2002, in a St. Peter's Square ceremony attended by 300,000 people, this small-town Spanish priest became Saint Jose Maria Escrivá of the Roman Catholic Church.
It was very important to Opus. Opus, in a number of ways, is a very fragile organization. It exists really on the edges of Catholicism in this sense, that there's no other organization like it. It's not got a structure that many Catholics recognize. And secondly, it had this spirituality which had been subject to so much criticism.
Despite Escrivá's elevated status in the Church, his cause for canonization drew pointed criticism.
Escrivá pretty much leapfrogged over a lot of other candidates, and you have to wonder how much of it was as a result of the influence of Opus Dei in the Vatican.
He was given a priority, probably with the blessings of the Pope, who was a great benefactor to Opus Dei. He liked Opus Dei. And again, there's nothing unusual about that. There's always priorities.
The making of a saint is a complicated and costly process. It involves tribunals, comprehensive reviews of a candidate's life, their writings, miracles performed, and testimony from their contemporaries. Some say Escrivá's tribunals were incomplete.
I think it violated the canons of objectivity, fairness, and perhaps violated the integrity of the process itself. When you conduct these tribunals, you must, under canon law, search out and find critics of the candidate. Well, 11 critics wanted to appear. Only one was allowed.
One voice whose testimony was silenced was Maria del Carmen Tapia, a former Opus Dei numerary who worked closely with Escrivá on a daily basis.
One of the main things of him that I have said many times, that he was ready to tantrums, and it's true. He was able to have a tremendous reprimand, so to every reaction. He was very impetuous. He was very impulsive.
But historically, becoming a saint hasn't been about perfection. It's about spiritual transformation.
Saints sin like other people do. They live the same lives as we do, or live in the same world, but their insight into what life is all about is different.
Some of the most popular saints historically have been people whose lives you wouldn't dream of imitating. It's not as possible to imitate them, and yet there's more devotion to them. Escrivá is not an untypical character, frankly.
Escrivá said a saint is not a Christian without faults. It is the Christian who struggles against his faults until the very last moment of his life. It has been written that every institution is the lengthened shadow of one man. For Opus Dei, Saint Jose Maria Escrivá's epic odyssey from a vision to a global following has left a formidable footprint.
I think that when the history of Opus Dei comes to be written, it's going to be one of the exciting stories in the history of expansion of an institution in the Catholic Church.
Opus Dei wants to grow. We think we have a message that society wants to hear. We want to get our message across.
No wonder that Opus Dei ends up being in the Da Vinci Code. And no wonder it becomes a metaphor for secret and threatening societies. They've created that themselves. They can change it.
It's the same today that was 50 years ago. For God's sake, if they have to survive, they have to change, because life is a constant change.
Certainly we've learned many things over these last 50 years of doing Opus Dei in the United States. We're doing a lot better, we're learning many things, and I hope that problems will diminish.
Opus Dei is saying that the conversion of the secular world can't be done by a caste of people wearing Roman collars, standing on the outside and wagging their fingers at it. It's got to be done by lay people who live and move inside that secular world. That is the perennial challenge facing the church. The jury is still out on whether or not it's actually going to work.